been listening to this song for like the past hour. Oops, I just had to move my other mic. Hi, good night. Can you say good night without saying bye? But I hope you have like a nice evening. What is it from? I don't think it's from anywhere. I sent it on the server. I sent it in chat. I don't know. It's been like just a random recommendation. But yeah, it sounded familiar, like a game OST. Yeah, kinda. But it's like, I think it's someone's song. The artist. Let me check, because they have it on the thing. Music. It's called Azali. It's from Ikto, something like that. But yeah, it's really good, and I feel like it fits the vibe of reading a story. I found a book to read. Probably one of my favorite story from when I was a kid. Some of you might know it. It's called The Little Prince from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Of course, I'm gonna read the English version, right? But yeah, this probably was my favorite book as a kid to read. And even though it's a French book, I think it got pretty popular like around the world. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. And yeah, I will read that. Okay, actually, one thing I should have brought before like starting all that is some water. Because I'll be reading, so let me grab some water real quick. Okay, got some water. Sorry. I hope you guys enjoyed this time. Let me drink a little bit. Okay. Let's start. The Little Prince. Chapter 1. Once, when I was 6 years old, I saw a magnificent picture in a book called True Stories from Nature about the primeval forest. It was a picture of a boa constrictor in the act of swallowing an animal. Here is a copy of the drawing. Oh, I'm supposed to show you the picture, I think. It's basically a snake eating, a drawing of a snake eating an animal, but like a drawing, not nothing too bad. In the book, it said boa constrictors swallows the prey whole without chewing it. After that, they are not able to move, and they sleep through the 6 months that they need for digestion. I hope you guys don't expect me to read like super well, because I'm not that good at reading, as loud, at least. I pondered deeply. Then, over the adventures of the jungle, I pondered deeply. Then, over the adventures of the jungle. And after some work with a colored pencil, I succeeded in making my first drawing. My drawing number 1. It looks something like this. Maybe I can try to. I would love to like show it. Wait. Let me see if I can maybe show it. One sec. So chat. This is the drawing of the snake. My drawing number 1, it looks something like this. I showed my masterpiece to the grown-ups and asked them whether the drawing frightened them, but they answered, "Frightened? Why should anyone be frightened by a hat? It does look like a hat." My drawing was not a picture of a hat, it was a picture of a boa constrictor digesting an elephant, but since the grown-ups were not able to understand it, I made another drawing. I drew the inside of a boa constrictor so that the grown-ups could see it clearly. They always need to have things explained. My drawing number 2 looked like this. The grown-up's response this time was to advise me to lay aside my drawing of boa constrictor, whether from the inside or the outside, and devote myself instead to geography, history, arithmetic, and grammar. That is why, at the age of 6, I gave up what might have been a magnificent career as a painter. I've been disheartened by the failure of my drawing number 1. Wait, is that? Oh yeah, it is. Okay, my bad. I just didn't remember how the story started. That is why, at the age of 6, I gave up what might have been a magnificent career as a painter. I'd been disheartened by the failure of my drawing number 1 and my drawing number 2. Grown-ups never understand anything by themselves, and it is tiresome for children to be always and forever explaining things to them. So then, I chose another profession and learned to pilot airplanes. I've flown a little over all parts of the world, and it is true that geography has been very useful to me. At a glance, I can distinguish China from Arizona. If one gets lost in the night, such knowledge is valuable. In the course of this life, I've had a great many encounters with a great many people who have been concerned with matters of consequence. I have lived a great deal among grown-ups. I have seen them intimately close at hand, and that hasn't much improved my opinion on them. Whenever I met one of them, who seemed to me at all clear-sighted, I tried to experiment of showing him my drawing number 1, which I have always kept. I would try to find out, so if this was a person of true understanding, but whoever it was, he or she would always say, "That is hat." Then I would never talk to that person about boa constrictor or Primval Forest or stars. I would bring myself down to his level. I would talk to him about bridge and goal and politics and neckties, and the grown-ups would be greatly pleased to have met such a sensible man. Chapter 2. So I lived my life alone, without anyone that I could really talk to, until I had an accident with my plane in the desert of Sahara. 6 years ago, something was broken in my engine, and as I had with me neither a mechanic or any passenger, I set myself to attempt the difficult repairs all alone. It was a question of life or death for me. Had scarcely enough drinking water to last a week. The first night, then, I went to sleep on the sand, 1,000 miles from any human habitation. I was more isolated than a shipwrecked sailor on a raft in the middle of the ocean. Thus, you can imagine my amazement at sunrise when I was awakened by an odd little voice. It said, "If you please, draw me a ship." What? Draw me a ship. I jumped to my feet, completely thunderstruck. I blinked my eyes hard. I looked carefully all around me, and I saw a most extraordinary small person who stood there examining me with great seriousness. Here you may see the best portrait that later I was able to make of him, but my drawing is certainly very much less charming than its model. This is the drawing. That, however, is not my fault. The grown-ups discouraged me in my painter's career when I was 6 years old, and I never learned to draw anything except boas from the outside and boas from the inside. Now I stared at this sudden apparition with my eyes fairly starting out of my head in astonishment. Remember, I had crashed in the desert 1,000 miles from any uninhabited region, and yet my little man seemed neither to be straying uncertainly among the sand, nor to be fainting from fatigue or hunger, or thirst or fear. Nothing about him gave any suggestion of a child lost in the middle of the desert, 1,000 miles from any human habitation. When at last I was able to speak, I said to him, "But what are you doing here?" And in answer, he repeated very slowly, as if we were speaking of a matter of great consequences, "If you please, draw me a ship." When a mystery is too overpowering, one dare not disobey. Absurd as it might seem to me, 1,000 miles from any human habitation and any danger of death, I took out of my pocket a sheet of paper and my fountain pen. But then I remembered how my studies had been concentrated on geography, history, arithmetic, and grammar, and I told the little chap, a little crossly too, that I did not know how to draw. He answered me, "That doesn't matter, draw me a ship." But I had never drawn a ship, so I drew for him one of the two pictures. I drawn so often. It was that of a boa constrictor from the outside, and I was from the outside, outside, and I was astounded to hear the little fella greet it with, "No, no, no! I do not want an elephant inside a boa constrictor. A boa constrictor is a very dangerous creature, and an elephant is very cumbersome. Where I live, everything is very small. What I need is a sheep. Draw me a sheep." So then I made a drawing. Cute little sheep. He looked at it carefully. Then he said, "No, this sheep is already very sick. Lee, make me another." So I made another drawing. My friend smiled gently and gently. "You see yourself," he said, "that this is not a sheep. This is a ram. It has horns." So then I did my drawing over once more. Cute sheep. But it was rejected too, just like the others. "This one is too old. I want a sheep that will live a long time." By this time my patience was exhausted, because I was in a hurry to start taking my angina apart. So I tossed off this drawing, and I threw out an expression with it. "This is only his box. The sheep you asked for is inside." I was very surprised to see a light break over the face of my young judge. "That is exactly the way I wanted it. Do you think that this sheep will have to have a great deal of grass?" "Why?" "Because where I live, everything is very small." "There will surely be enough grass, wife," I said. "It is a very small sheep that I have given you." He bent his head over the drawing. "Not so small that, look, he has gone to sleep." And that is how I made the acquaintance of the little prince. Chapter 3. It took me a long time to learn where he came from, the little prince, who asked me so many questions, never seemed to hear the ones I asked him. It was from words dropped by chance that, little by little, everything was revealed to me. The first time he saw my airplane, for instance, I shall not draw my airplane. That would be much too complicated for me. He asked me, "What is that? What is that object?" "That is not an object. It flies. It is an airplane. It is my airplane." And I was proudly to have him learn that I could fly. He cried out then, "What? You dropped down from the sky?" "Yes," I answered modestly. "Oh, that is funny." And the little prince broke into a lovely peal of laughter, which irritated me very much. I liked my misfortune to be taken seriously. Then he added, "So you too come from the sky? Which is your planet?" At that moment, I caught a gleam of light in the impenetrable mystery of his presence, and I demanded abruptly, "Do you come from another planet?" But he did not reply. He tossed his head gently, without taking his eyes off my plane. It is true that on that you can't have come from very far away." And he sank into a reverie which lasted a very long time. Then, taking my ship out of his pocket, he buried himself in the contemplation of his treasure. You can imagine how my curiosity was aroused by this half confidence about the other planets. I made a great effort, therefore, to find out more about this subject. My little man, where do you come from? What is this whale of which you speak? Where do you want to take your ship? After a reflective silence, he answered, The thing that is so good about the box you have given me is that at night he can use it as his house. That is so, and if you are good, I will give you a string too, so that you can tie him during the day, and a post to tie him to. But the little prince seemed shocked by this offer. Tie him? What a queer idea. But if you don't tie him, I said, he will wander off somewhere and get lost. My friend broke into another peal of laughter. But where do you think he would go? Anywhere, straight ahead of him. The little prince said, earnestly, That doesn't matter. Wiley, everything is so small. And with perhaps a hint of sadness, he added, Straight ahead of him? Nobody can go very far. I had thus learned a second fact of great importance. This was that the planet the little prince came from was scarcely any larger than a house. But that did not surprise me very much. I knew very well that in addition to the great planets, such as the Earth, Jupiter, Mars, Venus, to which we have given names, there are also hundreds of others, some of which are so small that one has a hard time seeing them through the telescope. When an astronomer discovers one of these, he does not give it a name, but only a number. He might call it, for example, asteroid 325. I have serious reason to believe that the planet from which the little prince came is the asteroid known as B612. This asteroid has only once been seen through the telescope. That was by a Turkish astronomer in 1909. On making his discovery, the astronomer had presented it to International Astronomical Congress in a great demonstration. But it was a Turkish costume, and so nobody would believe what he said. Grown-ups are like that. Fortunately, however, for the reputation of asteroid B612, a Turkish dictator made a law that his subjects, under pain of death, should change the European costume. So in 1920, the astronomer gave his demonstration all over again, dressed with impressive style and elegance. And this time everybody accepted his report. If I have told you these details about the asteroid and made a note of its number to you, it is on account of the grown-ups and their ways. When you tell them that you have made a new friend, they never ask you any questions about essential matters. They never say to you, what does his voice sound like? What game does he love best? Does he collect butterflies? Instead, they demand, how old is he? How many brothers he has? How much does he weigh? How much money does his father make? Only from these figures do they think they have learned anything about him. If you were to say to the grown-ups, I saw a beautiful house made of rosy bricks with geraniums in the windows and doves on the roof, they would not be able to get any idea of that house at all. You would have to say to them, I saw a house that cost $20,000. would exclaim, "Oh, what a pretty house that is." Just so you might say to them, the proof that the little prince existed is that he was charming, that he laughed, and that he was looking for a sheep. If anybody wants a sheep, that is proof that he exists. And what good would it be? What good would it do to tell them that? They would shrug their shoulders and treat you like a child. But if you said to them, the planet he came from is the asteroid B612, then they would be convinced and leave you in peace from their questions. They are like that. One must not hold it against them. Children should always show great forbearance towards grown-up people. But certainly, for us who understand life, figures are a matter of indifference. I should have liked to begin this story in the fashion of the fairy tales. I should have liked to say, once upon a time, there was a little prince who lived on a planet that was scarcely any bigger than himself, and who had need of a ship. To those who understand life, that would have given a much greater air of truth to my story. For I do not want anyone to read my books carelessly. I've suffered too much grief in setting down these memories. 6 years have already passed since my friend went away from me with his ship. If I try to describe him here, it is to make sure that I shall not forget him. To forget a friend is sad. Not everyone has had a friend, and if I forget him, I may become like the grown-ups who are no longer interested in anything but figures. It is for that purpose, again, that I have brought a box of paints and some pencils. It is hard to take up drawing again at my age, when I have never made any pictures except those of the boa constrictor from the outside and the boa constrictor from the inside when I was 6. I shall certainly try to make my portrait as true to life as possible, but I am not at all sure of success. One drawing goes along all right, and another has no resemblance to its subject. I make some errors too. In the little prince's height, in one place he is too tall, and in another too short, and I feel some doubt about the colors of his costume, so I fumble along as best I can. No good, no bad, and I hope generally fair to middling. In certain more important details I shall make mistake also, but that is something that will not be my fault. My friend never explained anything to me. He thought perhaps that I was like himself, but I, alas, do not know how to see sheep through the wall of boxes. Perhaps I'm a little like the grown-ups. I've had to grow old. As each day passed, I would learn in our talk something about the little prince's planet, his departure from it, his journey. The information would convey slowly, as it might chance to fall from his stars. It was in the way that I heard on the 3rd day about the catastrophe of the baobabs. This time, once more, I had the ship to thank for it, for the little prince asked me abruptly, as if seized by a grave doubt. Is it true? Isn't it that sheep eat little bushes? Yes, that is true. Ah, I'm glad. I did not understand why it was so important that sheep should eat little bushes. Sorry. But the little prince added, then it follows that they also eat baobabs. I pointed out to the little prince that baobabs were not little bushes, but on the contrary, trees as big as castles, and that even if he took a whole herd of elephants away with him, the herd would not eat up one single baobab. One second. The idea of the herd of elephants made the little prince laugh. We would have to put them one on top of the other, he said. But he made a wise comment. Before they grow so big, the baobabs should start out by being alone. That is strictly correct, I said. But why do you want the sheep to eat the little baobabs? He answered me once. Oh, come on, come. As if he were speaking of something that was self-evident, and I was obligated to make great mental effort to solve this problem without any assistance. Indeed, as I learned, they were on the planet where the little prince lived. As on all planets, good planets and bad planets. In consequence, there were good seed from good plants and bad seed from bad plants. But seeds are invisible. To sleep deep in the heart of the earth's darkness until someone among them is seized with the desire to awaken. Then the little seed will stretch itself and begin timidly at first to push a charming little spring inoffensively upwards towards the sun. If it is only a sprout of radish on the sprig of a rose bush, one would let it grow wherever it might wish. But when it is a bad plant, one must destroy it as soon as possible. The very first instant that one recognizes it. Now, there was some terrible seed on the planet that was the home of the little prince, and these were the seeds of the baobabs. The soil of that planet was infested with them. The baobab is something you will never be able to get rid of it. Get rid of if you attend it too late. My bad. Okay, let me drink a little bit. Oh, my bad. Sorry. It spreads all over this entire planet. It pours clear through it with its root, and if the planet is too small and the baobabs are too many, they split it in pieces. It is a question of discipline, the little prince said to me later on. When you're finished your own toilet in the morning, then it is to attend to the toilet of your planet. Just so, with the greatest care, you must see to it that you pull up regularly all the baobab at the very first moment, when they can be distinguished from the rose bushes, which they resemble so closely in their earliest youth. It is very tedious work, the little prince added, but very easy. And one day he said to me, "You ought to me to make a beautiful drawing, so that the children where you live can see exactly how old this is. That would be very useful to them if they were to travel sometime." He added, "Then is no harm in putting off a piece of work until another day. But when it is as a matter of baobabs, that always means a catastrophe. I mean a planet that was inhabited by a lazy man. He neglected 3 little bushes." So as the little prince described it to me, I have made a drawing of that planet. I do not much like to take the tone of a moralist, but the danger of the baobabs is so little understood, and such considerable risk would be run by anyone who might get lost on an asteroid, that for once I am breaking through my reserve. Children, I said plainly, watch out for the baobabs. My friends, like myself, have been skirting this danger for a long time, without ever knowing it, and so it is for them that I have worked so hard over this drawing. The lesson which I pass on by this means is worth all the trouble it has cost me. Perhaps you will ask me, why are there no drawing in these books as magnificent and impressive as the drawing of the baobabs? The reply is simple. I've tried, but with the others, I have not been successful. When I made the drawing of the baobabs, I was carried beyond myself by the inspiring force of urgent necessity. Oh, little prince, bit by bit, I came to understand the secret of your sad little life. For a long time, you had found your only entertainment in the quiet pleasure of looking at the sunset. I learned that new detail on the morning of the 4th day, when you said to me, "I'm very fond of sunset. Come, let us go look at sunset now." "But we must wait," I said. "Wait for what?" "For the sunset. We must wait until it is time." At first you seemed to be very much surprised, and then you laughed to yourself. You said to me, "I'm always thinking that I am at home." Just so everybody knows that when it is noon in the United States, the sun is setting over France. If you could fly to France in 1 minute, you could go straight to the sunset, right from noon. Unfortunately, France is too far away for that. But on your tiny planet, my little prince, all you need to do is move your chest a few steps. You can see the day end and the twilight fade falling whenever you like. One day, you said to me, I saw the sunset 44 times. And a little later you added, "You know, one loves the sunset when one is so sad." "Why are you so sad then?" I asked. "On the day of the 44 sunsets?" But the little prince made no reply. On the 5th day, again, as always, it was thanks to the sheep. The secret of the little prince's life was revealed to me abruptly, without anything to lead up to it, and as if the question had been born a long and silent meditation on this problem, it demanded, "A sheep, if it eats little bushes, does it eat flowers too?" "A sheep," I answered, "eats anything it finds in its reach." Even flowers that have thorns? Yes, even flowers that have thorns. Then the thorns, what use are they? I did not know. At that moment, I was very busy trying to unscrew a bolt that had got stuck in my engine. I was very much worried, for it was becoming clear to me that the breakdown of my plane was extremely serious. And I had so little drinking water left that I had to fear for the most. The thorns, what use are they? The little prince never let go of a question. Once he had asked it, as for me, I was upset over that bolt, and I answered with the first thing that came into my mind. The thorns are of no use at all. Flowers have thorns just for spite. Oh. There was a moment of complete silence. Then the little prince flashed back at me with a kind of resentfulness. I don't believe you. Flowers are weak creatures. They are naive. They reassure themselves as best as they can. They believe that their thorns are terrible weapons. I did not answer. At that instant, I was saying to myself, if this bolt still won't turn, I'm going to knock it out with the armor. Again, the little prince disturbed my thoughts. And you actually believe that the flower? Oh no! I cried. No, no, no! I don't believe anything. I answered you with the first thing that came into my head. Don't you see I am very busy with my matter of consequences? He stared at me, thunderstruck. Matters of consequence? He looked at me there, with my armor in my hand, my finger black with my engine grease, bending down over an object which seemed to be to him very ugly. He talked just like grown-ups. That made me a little ashamed, but he went on relentlessly. He mixed everything up together, he confused everything. He was really very angry. Tossed his golden curls in the breeze. I know a planet where there is a certain red-faced gentleman. He has never smelled a flower. He has never looked at the star. He has never loved anyone. He has never done anything in his life but add up figures. And all day he says over and over, just like you, I am busy with matter of consequence. And that makes him swell up with pride, but he is not a man, he is a mushroom. A what? A mushroom. The little prince was now white with rage. The flowers have been growing thorns for millions of years. For millions of years the sheep have been eating them just the same. And it is not a matter of consequence to try to understand why the flower go to so much trouble to grow thorns, which are never of any use to them. Is the warfare between the sheep and the flowers not important? Is this not of more consequence that a fat, red-faced gentleman's sons? And if I know I myself one flower which is unique in the world, which goes nowhere but on my planet, but which one little ship can destroy in a single bite some morning without even noticing, what is it doing? Or you think that is not important? His face turned from white to red as he continued. If someone loves a flower, of which just one single blossom grows in all the millions of stars, it is enough to make him happy, just to look at the stars. He can say to himself, somewhere my flower is there. But if the ship eats the flower, in one moment all the stars will be darkened. And you think that is not important? He could not say anything more. His words were choked by sobbing. The night had fallen. had let my tools drop from my hands. Of what moment now was my hammer, my bolt of thirst or death? On one star, one planet, my planet, the Earth, there was a little prince to be comforted. I took him in my arms and rocked him. I said to him, "The flowers that you love is not in danger. I will draw you a muzzle for your ship. I will draw you a railing to put around your flower. I will." I did not know what to say to him. I felt awkward and blundering. I did not know how I could reach him, where I could overtake him, and go on hand in hand with him once more. It is such a secret planet, the land of tears. I soon learned to know this flower better. On the little prince's planet, the flowers had always been very simple. They had only one ring of petals. They took up to no room at all. They were a trouble to nobody. One morning they would appear in the grass, and by night they would have faded peacefully away. But one day, from a seed blown from no one knew where, a new flower had come up, and the little princess had watched very closely over the small sprout, which was not like any other small sprout on his planet. It might, you see, have been a new kind of baobab. The shrub soon stopped growing and began to ready to produce a flower. The little prince, who was present at the first appearance of a huge bud, felt once that some more of a miraculous apparition must emerge from it. But the flower was not satisfied to complete the preparation, put her beauty in the shelter of a green chamber. She chose her colors with the greatest care. She dressed herself slowly. She adjusted her petals one by one. She did not wish to go out into the world all rumpled like the pale poppies. It was only in the full radiance of her beauty that she wished to appear. Oh yes, she was coquettish creature, and her mysterious adornment lasted for days and days. Then, one morning, exactly at sunrise, she suddenly showed herself, and after working all the painstaking precision, she yawned and said, "Oh, I am scarcely awake. I beg that you excuse me. My petals are still all disarranged." But the little prince could not restrain from his admiration. "Oh, how beautiful you are!" "Am I not?" the flower responded sweetly. "And I was born the same moment as the sun." The little prince could guess easily enough that she was not any too modest, but how moving and exciting she was. "I think it's time for breakfast," she added an instant later. "If you would have the kindness to think of my needs." And the little prince, completely abashed, went to look for a sprinkling can of fresh water, so he tended the flower. So, too, she began very quickly to torment him with her vanity, which was, in the truth, be known a little difficult to deal with. One day, for instance, when she was speaking of her fall thorns, she said to the little prince, let the tiger comes with their clothes." "There are no tigers on my planet," the little prince objected. "And anyways, tigers do not eat weeds." "I am not a weed," the flower replied sweetly. Please excuse me. I'm not at all afraid of tigers, she went on, but I have an awe of drafts. I suppose you wouldn't have a screen for me. Awe of draft? That is bad luck for a plant, remarked the little prince, and added to himself, this flower is a very complex creature. Okay, one sec, I need to read, to drink. Night, I want you to put me under a glass cliff. It is very cold where you live. In the place I came from, she interrupted herself at that point. She had come in the form of a seed. She could not have known anything of any other worlds. Embarrassed over having let herself be caught on the verge of such a naive untruth, she coughed 2 or 3 times in order to put the little prince on the screen. I was just going to look for it when you spoke to me. Then she forced a cough a little more, so that you should suffer from remorse just the same. So the little prince, in spite of all good will that was inseparable from his love, had soon come the doubt of her. He had taken seriously words which were without importance, and it made him very unhappy. I ought not to have listened to her, he confided to me one day. One never ought to listen to the flowers. One should simply look at them and breathe their fragrance. Mine perfumed all my planet, but I did not know how to take pleasure in all their grace. This tale of clothes, which disturbed me so much, should only have filled my heart with tenderness and pity. And he continued his confidence. The fact is that I did not know how to understand anything. I ought to have judged by deeds and not by words. She cast a fragrance and a radiance over me. I ought never to have run away from her. I ought to have cast all the affection that lay behind her poor little stratagems. Flowers are so inconsistent, but I was young to know how to love her. Okay, I'll read one more chapter, okay? One more chapter. Okay. I believe that for his escape, he took advantage of the migration of a flock of wild birds. On the morning of his departure, he put his planet in perfect order. He carefully cleaned out his active volcanoes. He possessed 2 active volcanoes, and they were very convenient for heating his breakfast in the morning. He also had 1 volcano that was extinct, but as he said, one never knows. So he cleaned out the extinct volcano too. If they were all cleaned out, volcanoes burn slowly and steadily, without eruption. Volcano eruptions are like fire in a chimney. On our Earth, we are obviously much too small to clean out our volcanoes. That is why they bring no end of trouble upon us. The little prince also pulled up, with a certain sense of dejection, the last little shoots of the baobabs. He believed that he would never want to return, but on his last morning, all these familiar tasks seemed very precious to him. And when he watered the flower for the last time, prepared to place her under the shelter of a glass globe, he realized that he was very close to tears. Goodbye, he said to the flower. She made no answer. Goodbye, he said again. The flower coughed, but it was not because she had a cold. I had been silly, she said to him at last. Ask your forgiveness. Try to be happy. He was surprised by this absence of reproach. She says. He stood there all bewildered. The glass globe held arrested in midair. He did not understand his quiet sweetness. Of course I love you, the flower said to him. It is my fault that you have not known it all the while. That importance is of no importance. It's not working right now. Hi, Lidby. How are you doing? I'll refund the points noise. Where was I? Try to be happy. Okay. Of course I love you, the flower said to him. It is my fault that you have not known it all the while. It is not of no importance, but you have been just as foolish as I. Try to be happy. Let the glass globe be. I don't want it anymore. But the wind, my cold is not so bad as all that. The cool night air will do me good. I am a flower. But the animals, well, I must endure the presence of 2 or 3 caterpillars if I wish to become acquainted with the butterflies. It seems that they are very beautiful, and if not the butterflies and the caterpillars, who will call upon me will be very far away. As for the large animals, I'm not at all afraid of any of them. I have my clothes. And naively she showed me her 4 thorns, and she added, Don't linger like this. You have decided to go away. Now, go. For she did not want him to see her crying. She was such a proud flower. Okay, chat. I will stop there.
Thank you!
Thank you for the follow. I was just finishing reading right now. We went till chapter 9, but yeah, we were reading the Little Prince. It's like one of my favorite stories from when I was a kid. So yeah, I'll read some more on stream. I think it's good practice to read out loud. So yeah, I'll definitely do some more story reading. But yeah, hope you guys got to relax too. Maybe some of you guys fell asleep. But yeah,